Ghost in the Shell, a property that has been around for some time, a manga that started, I can't remember the exact year in the 80s. The film version, first one came out in 1995. There was a sequel. There was Standalone Complex, which was a follow-up series that all follows the story of a bunch of robotically augmented police from, I want to say Section 9 is the name of the district in a kind of sort of Hong Kong future with a lot of interesting sci-fi concepts. So word hit the street that Scarlett Johansson was going to star in a live-action reboot of the series, and people were kind of concerned and wondering exactly how that would turn out. It's a problem. And here's the thing, though. If you've never heard of the series and you just walk on in and you hear, oh, Scarlett Johansson's wearing skin-tight clothing to look like she's a kind of naked robot lady and punches and kicks and shoots guns and does invisible camouflage jumping and things, you might go, yeah, that's fine. And as just a boring, unintelligent kind of sci-fi movie, sure. Problem being, Ghost in the Shell was a really interesting movie of its time because science fiction up until this point of the mid-90s tended to be pretty slow. You had Star Wars, which was more like a space opera, swashbuckling thing. But in terms of hard sci-fi, as we fans of Party Down might say, hard sci-fi. That's a whole nother thing. But if you like your hard sci-fi, it would tended to be slow. It wasn't these action blockbustery sort of things. Blade Runner, Alien. I mean, Aliens had shooting of things, but even that was Ghost in the Shell was the first to really nail like exciting and actiony and also thoughtful and really looking at science and fiction and fact coming together. That has all been thrown in the trash. This is not just it could have just been a retread of the original Ghost in the Shell. Instead, I feel like I could ramble a while. I feel free to ask some questions here because Ghost in the Shell is one of these things that I think people have different experiences with.
Well, and I mean, you could go in a million different directions because the original the cartoon movie, from the early 90s, very stylized and like representing that in a live action format. You can either get it really right or really wrong, I have to imagine. I mean, there were some trade-offs made for the film version that were kind of glaring. Was there anything redeeming about kind of some of the different directions that they took it into?
I think the best thing you can say is that the CGI and staging and how it looked is pretty good. The invisibility cloak sort of stuff that Scarlett Johansson occasionally turns on while kicking butt looks quite good. The action sequences are fine in that, it's big budget. It's not like they B-movied this. There's certainly effort in it. But these are all sort of action scenes you've seen before because so many filmmakers saw Ghost in the Shell and sort of ran with it. Scarlett Johansson, she's perfectly fine in terms of acting. Pilo Asbeck, I don't know how to say that guy's name, but he is Bateau. He is the secondary cop, and he's got weird robo eyes installed in his head, and that looks cool. I mean, if you just hit the mute button and watch it, you'll be like, it's pretty cool. There's some cool effects. There's some cool scenery. But one of the biggest things they get wrong, and I didn't dig so much into this in my review because we're going to have a follow-up piece at Ars Technica from one of our even bigger Ghost in the Shell fans about the series, is that this fictional future world originally was a statement and commentary on the rapidly changing world of Hong Kong. That was a huge part of the film, a huge part of the original manga, and totally thrown in the trash. I feel like all the Chinese investors in this film who put it together, of all the things they might have censored or said we don't really want in the movie, specific allusions to the grandeur and rise of Hong Kong might not have been high on their list. So I thought that was a really weird thing that even if you were just trying to check it out, and it's just like, they just put a couple of hologram signs in the distance and says, it's future world, as opposed to, oh, right, this was actually a really interesting socio-political commentary on East Asian culture all over the place for that era.
So I know there were some censorship issues with the original manga of Ghost in the Shell, and sometimes manga can we think of cartoons in the United States in the West as being tamer than some manga. Do you think that this movie really captured the spirit of manga in general in terms of its matureness?
Oh, it's PG-13. There's violence and punching, but I think maturity is the thing that sci-fi can do, where what we the way it's hard for me to state it without sounding because there's just so much I thought it got wrong. But ultimately, the original series had a lot of nuance, had a lot of looking at how our rapidly changing world is affecting us and the blurred line between what is a person and what is a robot. A lot of these sort of subtle, it was on the surface, but it wasn't this like smack you over the head sort of thing about the concept of a soul, about the concept of autonomy. That's all gone here. It is all, you are told very explicitly about the word ghost meaning a soul. And that's like one of the first things you hear is about this main character, Major, who Scarlett Johansson plays, having this soul, and also about how her memories mean nothing. It's about her actions, not her memories. And that ends up being really weird because eventually we come to find out, no, she was actually a young Japanese girl before she was thrown into a robot body. And that is handled in a really awkward way that I think even if you want to sort of not care about accusations of caste whitewashing, if you want to accept that perhaps a white actor or actress can play the role just fine, they really slam into your face how little they care about original East Asian culture when this woman, Scarlett, comes through eventually to replace the Japanese girl, go to her dead mom and be like, you don't have to be sad now. Like that, it's really weird. So I just think that calling it Ghost in the Shell and then throwing all of the sci-fi concepts in the garbage is just a really strange move. And in my review, I said it was really equivalent to a Gone with the Wind reboot in which Scarlett and Mammy went on like a buddy cop rampage. It's just like, it's such a strange, why use the license if you're going to do something that different? It doesn't make sense. Right. It's not like a bunch of people were like, oh yeah, Ghost in the Shell, I've been meaning to see that. You know, they could have put a different title on it, gone a different way, but all of the stuff about Scarlett Johansson's character having all this sort of teenage angst was never in the original. All this revenge plot stuff wasn't in there at all. It's just a very strange mix-up of the manga and anime concepts all squished together, different episodes, different series, to essentially create an entirely new plot that had nothing to do with the original. So thumbs in the middle if you have never heard of this and you just want to see something stupid. Thumbs all the way down if you have any concept of what Ghost in the Shell is. Oh,
and they needed to appeal to the people. I think their goal was to appeal to the rabid fan base of the original, and if they failed on that, then that's a big fail.
No, if that was their goal, they could have copied any of the plot from the originals and had it make any sense.
That's true.
I don't know who the heck they were aiming for, but wasn't me, that's for sure.
All right.